Hi folks, it's Pete back with another video. As I wasn't doing any recording any videos for most of the year until recently, I never got to show my purchases. Now, being a music junkie, there's no way I could show you everything I bought in the last year. We'd be here till this time next year. But I thought I'd just pick out 20 albums that I bought. They're not necessarily the best albums, the ones I like best. They're just the ones I just decided to pick out and show. Hopefully they haven't been shown before. Most of them are not 2020 releases, and if they are, they probably weren't recorded in 2020. But who cares? Right, I'm not going to have to say a lot about these because there's 20 to get through. Let's get started. The first was is by Joe Quayle, Exolve. Now, Joe Quayle is an internationally acclaimed virtuoso cellist and composer. This is her fourth full-length album. It's a double album recorded in 2019. There's only one track per side, ranging from 10 to 18 minutes. And this is very atmospheric, symphonic, almost metal or industrial. She plays an electric cello with loads of loops and effects. There's a guitar on a couple of tracks and vocals on one track, but otherwise it's all by her. This is a brilliant album. I recommend this to everybody. Alright, moving on. Another band that was new to me this year is the American duo Acorn, and this is this is another double album. I'm not sure if it was released as two single releases originally, Sun Cycle and Elk Jam. Now, Acorn are two guitarists, a guy called Jesse Shepard on 12-string acoustic and Drew Gardner on electric guitar. And this music covers quite a range of styles, from sort of the John Fahey American primitive style through rootsy folk, jazz, bit of prog, classic rock, lots of improvisation. It's really excellent stuff. Right. Moving. Next we have a double compilation by various artists. I'll get this sleeve off. This is Strack, Crack and Break, and this chronicles the French acts from the Nurse with Wound list. Now, the Nurse with Wound list was a list of albums that the avant-garde band Nurse with Wound put in their first debut release. Lots of classic stuff on there, all tending towards the weird and wonderful. And this album on Finders Keepers, I think, was it released? Features just some of the French bands. You've got artists like Lard Free, Igor Vakovic, Marjun, ZNR, Horrific Child, Pierre Henry, Red Noise, Dashel Hedayet. This covers a lot of stuff, from music concrete, from free jazz, rock in opposition, Zool, prog. You've got a bit of everything in here. I'm really looking forward to future volumes in this series when they cover the other countries. I can't remember how many artists there are in the Nursery of the World list, but there are an awful lot. There you go. I love the cover of this one. Recommended for anybody who likes weird and avant-garde music. Up next, staying in France. I was so pleased to manage to get this. This has been a favourite for many years, and this is Laurent Thibault with his Mais on ne peut pas rêver tout le temps, which I think means you can't dream all the time. It's a gorgeous cover. Now, Laurent was Magma's very first bassist on their first album, and this sort of focuses on the jazzier side of the Magma bits of the first album. Somebody described this though as I love this, is a love child between Christian Vander and Mike Oldfield. There's only two problems with this album. One, that it's very short. I think it's under half an hour. And the second is, it was the only thing I think he's ever done. I think he went into running record labels and producing acts. But this is a beautiful, beautiful album. Highly recommended. Staying in the prog vein, as a lot of this will be, if you know me. And we have another band that was new to me this year, even though they've been around for quite a while. This is Nexus. Ethanol Comienzo del Topos Uranos. They're Argentinian, so I don't know what the title means. Like, they've been around for a while. This is, not sure how many albums they've done prior to this, but anybody that's into symphonic, ELP influenced prog, it will get lots of enjoyment out of this, you know, lots of sweeping keyboards, etc. I'm really surprised by this. Okay, moving from across the water to Germany, and an artist that's been a favourite of mine for quite a number of years is Peter Framarda. I'm sorry about the glare there. And this is his album Homunculus Volume 2. He's done a lot of work in various styles. His early stuff with the band Necropolis, his band Necropolis, was in that sort of heavy Zool style. He's done electronic works and others that are more in the rock opposition, sort of quasi-classical vein, and this is in that sort of vein, very sombre, very gothic in feel. Now, apart from Peter himself, you've got Eva Bitova on violin, Chris Carra of Armandul 2 fame on violins, alto sax and oud, Norbert Preisler on acoustic guitar, and Stefan Seifel on oboe. So you can imagine what sort of sound this is. Lovely album. I'm moving to my home country. And in the UK, this is an album that I'd heard of for a long time but never got round to buying or listening to. But this is absolutely stunning. This is Yandux de Grey, and with their album Mice and Rats in the Loft. This came out in 1971. This is a re-release on Trading Places recently. This is a sort of freewheeling progressive folk rock, very much in that acid folk vein, thinking of like Comus and Spirogyra, people like that. with a bit of Canterbury prog thrown in and a bit of chamber music. I think this is superb. And again, this is again described by someone as what Jethro Tull would sound like if they dropped acid and jammed with Christian Band. I'm not sure that's quite right, but this is excellent. Yandux de Grey. On to yet another country, and we're off to Scandinavia and Norway. And this is another one I had on CD for many years. And this is Neptune Towers with their album Caravans to Empire Algol. Just 2 long tracks occupying either side. They're a dark ambient electronic band from Norway, as I said. Very bleak music, very atmospheric. The guy that did this, his name is Fenris, and I think he was a member of a black metal band called Dark Throne, but this has got nothing to do with that. This takes its sort of inspiration from Klaus Schulze, Tangerine Dream, and Kraftwerk, the early, early Kosmischer music. Excellent. And talking of something bleak, this album I think was once described to me by a friend as one of the most depressing things he'd ever heard. I don't hear that myself. And this is the band Magnog, and they're an American sort of post-rock, space rock outfit. This is on the Cranky label. So you can imagine, if you know that label, you can imagine what sort of stuff it is. This was from 1996, and it has elements of that early Pink Floyd improvisational sort of stuff, and 70s kraut rock, with a bit of Tangerine Dream and Nashra Temple thrown in. Again, fairly bleak. Like I said, my mate found it very depressing to listen to, and he wouldn't after a while. But I thought this is brilliant. And then we move on to the Piece de Resistance. By the way, all of these albums are in no particular order. I don't know if I said that. But this, for me, was the re-release of the year. An album I'd been waiting for it to be released on vinyl for years, and finally it was by my friend Dave Cambridge on his Cardinal Fuzz label, and this is the only album by the 18th Day of May. They were a brilliant London-based folk rock band. Took their inspiration from bands, the classic British folk rock sound from Fairport Convention and early Albion band, but they also had that American psych feel. And I saw them once live in Manchester, and they were absolutely brilliant. But in a lot of their stuff, you could hear elements of Velvet Underground with the drones. You could hear Quicksilver Messenger Service. I thought the album was the best of its year. When was it originally released? 2005, I think. Absolute. This should be in everybody's collection. Dave's had a chance to, when he re-released this, to make it into a double album, and the tracks that didn't, that were probably recorded for a second album, which never got done, are brilliant as well. So it makes a superb double album. And if you like them, check out the Left Out Sides. They're a duo of Alison Cotton and I think Mark Nicholas of the band. They've done a number of releases which Dave's put out on the Cardinal Fuzz, which are excellent albums as well. and Alison Cotton's solo albums are always worth getting as well. I can't push this too highly. This is superb. Next, getting back to the weird and wonderful, we have the band Ethanol with, hopefully I can say this right, On Form for Blue. Now Ethanol were a sort of avant rock band. The membership was comprised of Steve O'Malley from Sun, Daniel O'Sullivan, who played with Guapo and Over, Christoph Krieg, might have been with Over as well, I'm not sure. And on this, which is a live album recorded in Norway, they've got the drummer Steve Noble, who was in Rip Rig and Panic. This is a weird fusion of doom, jazz, ambient noise. It is superb. I find it very difficult to describe. Saw them once live and they were great. That's Ethanol. Excuse me, my leg's going dead. Next up, probably the most famous name here, but I had to show this bit, and that's Rick Waitman's album of this year. Rick Waitman and the Martian Rock Ensemble with The Red Planet, another concept album about Mars. This is all instrumental. Now, and probably a lot of people, myself included, were going to be dubious about it. Another Rick Wakeman album, probably album number 549. But this is excellent. This is a real return to form, possibly his best since his first, Six Wives. I think this is well worth having. If you've given up on him, try this one. Right. Oh, excuse me. Next, we have a bit of jazz or jazz fusion. Recorded in 1971, but just released this year. Exit 1971 by the jazz rock, jazz fusion band Nucleus, led by Ian Carr. This was recorded, I think, about the time of their, or just after their second album. And if you know their first and second album, this is a good representation of what you're going to get. This was recorded live in the club Exit in Rotterdam, Friday, June the 11th, 1971, 9 p.m. The band at this point were obviously Ian Carr on trumpet, Brian Smith on tenor sax, soprano sax and flute, Carl Jenkins on oboe and electric piano, Howell Thomas on electric piano, Roy Babington on bass, John Marshall on drums, and Vic Higgins on percussion. If you like Soft Machine, you'll like these. Excellent band. Next, we have Wobbler. These are a Norwegian prog band. If you like retro 70s style prog with lots of big epic songs, lots of vintage sounds, lots of dark lights and shades, this is going to be right up your street. If you like Yes and Gentle Giant, Wobbler are a must. Oh, I I'm going to have to pause a second because I've forgotten a couple of albums, I think. Apologies for that. I realised I'd only pulled 18 albums rather than the 20, which would have made a mockery of the title of this video. Right, it also gave me a chance to stretch my legs. This is the last time I'm going to do a video sitting on the floor, I'll tell you. Right, next up is an American band. The second album of theirs I've got, and that is the band Titan. I'm not sure you can see the name of the band there. And this is called A Raining Sun of Light and Love for You and You and You. Love that in the cover. Sorry, the glare's pretty bad. They're from New York, a quartet with a few sort of fusion of prog, 1970s prog with a bit of stoner rock and psychedelia, but also, you know, a bit of krautrock in there with bands like Noi, Ashra Temple, and then Hawkwind and others. If that sounds up your street, then I would try this. Next, we have probably one that's known to you, The Art of Noise, with their debut album, Who's Afraid of the Art of Noise. Now, this isn't probably at the time. This probably wasn't the sort of thing I would have normally got into. It's sort of avant-garde electro pop, but it's quite experimental. A mixture of experimental electronics and new wave music. I think I got into it because of the single, the big single they had, Close to the Edit. Tell where that name came from, and one of the members was Trevor Horn, who obviously was a member of Yes for the Drama album. This is I really enjoy this. Not my usual scene, but excellent. What year was this? 1983 or 1984, and I don't like 80s music much, but this, superb. Right, back over the pond to America, and this is was an RSD release this year, and that's Ned Lagin's Seastones, sets 4 and set 5. The original Seastone album was released on the Grateful Dead Round Records back in, I think, 75, and I think it was actually credited to Lagin and Lesh at the time. It's electronics. It's difficult to describe, really. It's avant-garde. Like I said, electronics. I think this one actually stands up better than the original album. I think these were all recorded at the same time, because on the subsequent CD releases they've been expanded to, and this is probably from one of the CD releases, as well as Ned Lagin on various electronic synths, etc. You have Jerry Garcia, Phil Lesh on bass, David Crosby on guitar and vocals. The vocals are just sound, you know, wordless. Grace Slick on vocals, Dave Freiberg of Quicksilver on vocals, Mickey Hart of the Dead on percussion, and Spencer Dryden of the Airplane on percussion. Staying in America, one of my favourite bands of recent years, new bands, and that's The Mirrors. And this is a live album, Black Sand Live in London. This was, I think, recorded back in 2015 when they toured the UK, creating a cover of the picture of the band. And they cover everything from minimalistic psych through drone music, desert blues, eastern folk, and a bit of jazz thrown in. I think they've done some really excellent albums. Check them out. They're well worth your time. Next is a new album. I've only had one listen to this, and I think this was superb. And this is the Amorphous Androgynous and Peter Hamill with "We Persuade Ourselves We Are Immortal." Amorphous Androgynous have been around for quite a while, and they're God, my mind's gone blank who they're This is the Future Sound of London that they're sort of like an offshoot of, or affiliated with, or the same members. But this album here is basically a prog album. It's basically a 40-minute piece, really, with choir, orchestra, vintage synths, classic psych and prog elements. Actually, on the first listen, I think it's superb. I don't know why it's particularly credited to them and Peter Hamill. He does sing on the first track, and I think he co-wrote that first track, but I think that's the only. Oh no, he co-wrote another track, but that's his only involvement in the album, where he's got a co-credit. By the way, Paul Weller plays on this as well. If you like symphonic prog, check it out. And we finish off with the latest one I bought. I had to get this from France. It's just been re-released by a French label, and this is the American rock and opposition band Thinking Plague, with I think their second album, which is originally on cassette released on cassette in 1986 on their own label, and then released on Dead Man's Curve Records in 1987. This is the first re-release since then. And I said there's sort of that rocking opposition, that sort of avant-garde, Henry Cowish, Universe Zero, a bit of rock folk, chamber music, like Art Zoid, and a bit of 20th century classical in there. Fairly dark and creepy music on the whole, a bit edgy, but I really like them. I've only got one other CD by them. The stuff doesn't seem to be that easy to come by. You don't see much of it, but well worth getting. Oh, you might not be able to. My copy was 227 of 300, so it might not be available anymore. Right, that's it. That's 20 purchases this year. Wish I could have shown all the others, but it would have taken far too long. I'd like to take this opportunity again, as I said on the end of my last video, to wish everybody all the best for Christmas and for the new year. Please, stay safe and healthy, and hopefully we'll all get through current times and come out better and stronger at the other side. Take care.